At exactly 3:14 in the morning, the silence of my bedroom was shattered not by sound, but by light. My phone, resting on the mahogany nightstand, buzzed violently against the wood, illuminating the darkness with a harsh, artificial glare. I had been awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the relentless Seattle rain drumming against the window pane, a rhythm that usually lulled me to sleep but tonight felt like a countdown. I reached out, my joints stiff from the damp cold, and squinted at the screen. It was a message from my daughter, Emily. The preview showed only the first few words, but they were enough to make my heart stop in my chest. I unlocked the phone, my fingers trembling slightly, and read the full text. "Mom, I know you put down the $350,000 for the house, but Beatrice doesn't think it's appropriate for you to be at the Christmas Eve dinner this year. She wants it to be an intimate family gathering. I hope you understand. Love you." I read those words once, then twice, then a third time, until the pixels seemed to burn into my retinas. Each reading stripped away a layer of my defense, leaving me raw and exposed. I didn't reply immediately. I couldn't. I just lay there in the dark, the phone screen turning black in my hand, feeling something inside me, a tether I had been holding on to for decades, finally snap. It wasn't a loud break. It was quiet, final, and devastating. At that hour, when the world is stripped of its distractions, the truth has a way of finding you. The truth I had been avoiding for 2 years was now sitting heavily on my chest. I had purchased a home for a family that no longer had room for me. My name is Margaret Vance. I am 62 years old, a retired head librarian, and a widow. And on that rainy morning of December 15th, I realized that my entire life's investment was about to be liquidated. Not just financially, but emotionally. I sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed, placing my feet on the cold hardwood floor. I walked to the window and looked out at the empty street of my small apartment complex. The neighbor across the way still had their pumpkin decorations out, rotting on the porch, a stark contrast to the festive lights twinkling in the distance. I thought of all the times I had swallowed my pride, all the times I had smiled when Beatrice, my son-in-law's mother, had made a passive-aggressive comment. All the times I had said, "It is okay," really, whenever Emily canceled on me. I picked up the phone again. My thumb hovered over the keypad. I could have called. I could have screamed. I could have listed every sacrifice I had made since her father, Thomas, died 12 years ago. Instead, I typed a single word, lowercase, without punctuation. Understood. What no one knew, not my daughter Emily, not her husband Jason, and certainly not Beatrice, the woman who had effectively erased me from the holiday, was that the deed to the beautiful colonial house in Bellevue was not in their names. It was in mine. I had paid every single cent of the down payment and carried the mortgage in my name to secure the loan. And that morning, tired of being the invisible banker, the doormat, the silent partner in their happiness, I made a decision that would not only change their Christmas, but would redefine the rest of my life. I wasn't going to that dinner, that was certain, but neither were they. 4 years ago, when Emily first introduced me to Jason, I was genuinely happy. After Thomas passed away from a sudden heart attack, my world had shrunk to the 4 walls of the library and my Sunday calls with Emily. Jason seemed like a breath of fresh air. He was an architect, soft-spoken, with a firm handshake, and a way of looking at Emily that reminded me of how Thomas used to look at me. He spoke of building a future, of stability, of family. It was everything a mother wants to hear. I remember the first time I met his parents. It was a brunch at a high-end bistro downtown. I wore my best navy suit, the one I used for board meetings. Emily was nervous, smoothing her dress every few seconds. "Mom, please, Beatrice can be a little particular," she had warned me. Beatrice Caldwell swept into the restaurant like a weather front. She was a tall woman, impeccably dressed in cashmere and pearls, with hair so perfectly coiffed it looked like a helmet of spun gold. Her husband, Richard, trailed behind her, a silent man who seemed to have long ago given up on having an opinion. "Margaret, is it?" Beatrice said, extending a hand that felt like cold marble. She didn't wait for an answer. "Emily tells us you are a librarian. How quaint. I suppose it must be nice to have a job where you can just sit and read all day." I smiled, a tight, polite smile. "Actually, managing a city library involves quite a bit of administration, budgeting, and community outreach. But yes, the books are a perk." Beatrice hummed, a sound that conveyed she wasn't listening. Throughout the meal, she dominated the conversation, talking about their summer home in the Hamptons, her charity galas, and how disappointed she was that Jason hadn't become a neurosurgeon like his uncle. She barely touched her food, claiming she had a delicate constitution, while eyeing my plate of eggs Benedict with undisguised judgment. "You have a very hearty appetite," she observed as I finished my meal. "I enjoy good food," I replied evenly. "Yes, I can see that." When we left, Emily hugged me by the valet stand. "She liked you, Mom. I can tell." I looked at my daughter's hopeful eyes and didn't have the heart to tell her that Beatrice didn't like me. Beatrice tolerated me, and barely. But I kept silent because a mother does anything for her daughter's happiness. I paid for the wedding dress, a $5,000 designer gown Emily had fallen in love with. Beatrice planned the reception at a country club where I felt underdressed even in my most expensive gown. During the speeches, Jason thanked his parents for their unending support and guidance. He thanked the guests for coming. He didn't mention me. Emily blew me a kiss from the head table, mouthing, "I love you," and I told myself that was enough. But the real trouble began a year later. They were living in a cramped apartment in the city, paying exorbitant rent. They came to me one Sunday afternoon, looking like two children who had broken a vase. "Mom, we found a house," Emily said, her voice trembling with excitement. "In Bellevue. It's perfect. It has a yard for a dog, a nursery for later. But the market is insane. We can't qualify for the mortgage on our own, and we don't have the 20% down payment." I had sold my own large house after Thomas died and moved into a modest condo. I had the money. It was my retirement fund, my safety net. The money meant to ensure I never became a burden to anyone. "How much?" I asked. $350,000, Jason said, looking at his shoes. "For the down payment and closing costs. The house is $1.2 million. I took a deep breath. It was a staggering amount. But I looked at Emily. I saw the desperation and the dream in her eyes. "I will do it," I said. "But on one condition. The house stays in my name until you two are financially stable enough to refinance and pay me back. It's for my protection and yours." "Of course, Margaret," Jason said, beaming. "It's your house. We're just living in it." "And," Emily added, squeezing my hand, "there's a beautiful guest suite on the ground floor with its own bathroom. It will be your room, Mom. For whenever you visit, or if you ever need to stay with us, it's your space." That promise sealed the deal. I transferred the funds. We signed the papers. Technically, I was the landlord, and they were the tenants, though we never used those terms. It was family. The first sign of my erasure came 3 months after they moved in. I drove over on a Tuesday with a lasagna, thinking I would surprise them. I had my own key. When I unlocked the door, I heard voices in the living room. Beatrice was there, directing movers who were carrying in a massive, ugly Rococo mirror. Oh, Margaret, Beatrice said, spotting me. We didn't know you were coming. We're just doing a little redecorating. The feng shui in here was terrible. I looked around. My comfortable armchair, the one I had given them from my old house, was gone. Where is the chair? I asked. Oh, that old thing? Beatrice waved a hand. We put it in the garage. It really clashed with the aesthetic Jason and I are going for. Jason and I, not Jason and Emily, and certainly not Jason and the owner of the house. I brought dinner, I said, holding up the lasagna. That's sweet, Beatrice said, wrinkling her nose. But I've already ordered sushi from that exclusive place in downtown. You know Jason needs to watch his cholesterol. All that cheese and pasta. It's a bit much, isn't it? I left the lasagna on the counter and walked to the guest suite, my room. I wanted to wash my face and collect myself. But when I opened the door, I froze. The bed was gone. In its place were stacks of boxes labeled Beatrice's winter wardrobe, a Peloton bike, and a pile of Jason's old architectural blueprints. My room had become a storage unit. I turned around to find Emily standing there, looking guilty. Mom, I'm sorry, she whispered. Beatrice needed somewhere to store her off-season clothes. Her closets are being remodeled, and Jason really wanted the bike here. This was supposed to be my room, Emily. It is. Just temporarily it's storage. You can stay in the guest room upstairs if you want to stay over. The one with the sofa bed? It's a very comfortable sofa bed, she said weakly. I didn't stay for the sushi. I drove home in the rain, telling myself I was being oversensitive. It's just stuff, I thought. They are building their lives. I need to be flexible. But the flexibility only went one way. Over the next 6 months, the exclusions became more blatant. Sunday dinners were moved to Beatrice's house because it's just more elegant for hosting. I was invited, but I always felt like the poor relation, sitting at the end of the table while Beatrice held court. She would make subtle digs about my clothes. So practical, Margaret. My hair. Have you considered dyeing the gray? It ages you so much. And my life. I don't know how you handle the loneliness. Then came the final straw. Thanksgiving. I had assumed we would host it at the Bellevue house, my house. I had bought a 20-pound turkey. 2 weeks before the date, Emily called. Mom, change of plans. Beatrice booked a private chalet in Aspen for the holiday. It's going to be amazing. Oh, I said, trying to mask the hurt. I don't ski, Emily. And flights to Aspen right now must be fortune. Well, that's the thing, she said, her voice dropping. The chalet only has 4 bedrooms. Beatrice and Richard, Jason and me, Jason's brother and his wife, and Beatrice's sister. There really isn't room. I see. We'll have a special Christmas, Mom. Just us, I promise. We'll do it at the house. It will be huge. Okay, I had said. Okay. And now, here I was. December 15th. The huge Christmas at the house I paid for had been canceled via a text message at 3:00 a.m. because Beatrice didn't want me there. She wanted an intimate gathering. Intimate apparently meant the people who mattered. And I didn't matter. I was the wallet. I was the safety net. I was the useful idiot. The morning of the 15th, I didn't go to my water aerobics class. Instead, I went to the downtown office of Samuel Henderson, my attorney. He was an old friend of Thomas's, a man who wore bow ties and had eyes that missed nothing. Margaret, he said, ushering me in. You look like a woman on a mission. Coffee? No, thank you, Sam. I need to review the deed and the agreement for the Bellevue property. He pulled the file. It's straightforward. You are the sole owner. Fee, simple, absolute. Emily and Jason are tenants at will. There is no lease agreement because, well, it's family. You pay the property taxes, the insurance, and the mortgage. They pay utilities. If I wanted to sell it, I asked, my voice steady. How quickly could it be done? Sam took off his glasses. Sell it? Margaret, is everything all right? No, Sam, everything is far from all right. I want to sell it, and I want to sell it now. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. The market is hot, even in December. Investors are looking to dump cash before the tax year ends. If you price it aggressively, we could have a cash buyer in days. But what about Emily? Emily has made it clear where I stand in her life. I said. It's time I made it clear where she stands in mine. We listed the house that afternoon. I priced it at $1.1 million, $100,000 below market value for a quick sale. The condition was strict. A 30-day closing, but immediate possession of the title upon signing. 2 days later, on December 17th, we had an offer. An investment firm, Thorn Holdings, wanted to buy it for cash. They intended to turn it into a high-end corporate rental. They wanted to close on December 23rd. They are asking about vacancy, Sam told me over the phone. They want the property vacated by January 24th. That gives the current tenants 30 days' notice. Perfect, I said. Prepare the eviction notice. But don't serve it yet. I will deliver it myself. Margaret, Sam warned. This is the nuclear option. There is no coming back from this. They dropped the bomb first, Sam, I replied. I'm just walking through the rubble. The week leading up to Christmas was surreal. Emily texted me a few times asking if I was okay and if I was mad. I replied with short, breezy messages. Busy with the church choir, or catching up on reading. I didn't want to tip my hand. I needed them to feel safe. I needed them to be comfortable in their arrogance. On December 23rd at 2:00 p.m., I sat in a conference room and signed the papers. The wire transfer hit my account an hour later. $1.1 million. I had my down payment back, plus the equity. I was whole financially. Emotionally, I was a wreck. But the adrenaline of justice was keeping me upright. I drove home and looked at the eviction notice Sam had given me. It was a standard legal document, cold and impersonal. Notice to vacate. It stated that the property had been sold and the new owners required possession. Christmas Eve arrived with a heavy gray sky. The rain had turned to sleet. I dressed with care. I put on a crimson dress I hadn't worn in years, applied red lipstick, and wore the diamond earrings Thomas had given me for our 30th anniversary. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like the owner of my own destiny. I drove to the house in Bellevue. It was glowing in the twilight. Tasteful white lights lined the roof. A wreath hung on the door. Through the large bay window, the window I had paid for, I could see the Christmas tree and figures moving around. They were already celebrating. I parked my car and walked up the driveway. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I rang the bell. Jason opened the door. He was holding a glass of scotch, wearing a festive sweater. His smile faltered when he saw me. Margaret? Merry Christmas. We weren't expecting you. Merry Christmas, Jason, I said, stepping past him into the foyer. The house smelled of roasting goose and pine. I'm not staying long. I just have a Christmas card to deliver. The chatter in the living room died down. Beatrice was sitting on the sofa, my sofa, holding court as usual. Emily was by the fireplace. There were other people there, too. Beatrice's sister, her husband, and a couple I didn't recognize. Mom? Emily said, her face draining of color. What are you doing here? Margaret, Beatrice said, standing up, her voice dripping with condescension. We discussed this. This is a private family gathering. It's incredibly rude to just barge in. Private family gathering, I repeated, looking around the room. I see. Beatrice's sister is family. Jason's cousins are family. But the woman who bought the roof over your heads is an intruder. Mom, please, Emily hissed, stepping forward. Don't cause a scene. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing you? I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Emily, you embarrassed yourself when you chose to value this woman's vanity over your mother's love. I think you should leave, Jason said, trying to sound authoritative, though he looked terrified. Now. Oh, I'm leaving, I said. But I'm not the only one. I opened my purse and pulled out the manila envelope. I handed it to Jason. What is this? He asked. Open it. He tore open the envelope. As he read, his face went from flushed to pale gray. He looked up at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. What? Emily asked. Jason? What is it? She sold the house, Jason whispered. What? Beatrice shrieked. She can't do that. I can, and I did, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the room. The sale closed yesterday. The money is in my bank account. The new owners are Thorn Holdings. They are converting this property into executive housing. You have 30 days to vacate. Legally, you are trespassing as of January 24th. You monster! Beatrice spat, her veneer of elegance cracking. You are throwing your own daughter out on the street on Christmas Eve? No, I corrected her. I am giving my daughter 30 days' notice, which is more notice than you gave me when you kicked me out of Christmas dinner. I turned to Emily. She was crying now, silent, shocked tears. Mom, how could you? This is our home. No, Emily, I said softly. It was never your home. It was a gift you never respected. It was a favor you took for granted. I paid $350,000 for this house. I paid the mortgage every month, and in return, I was relegated to a storage room, uninvited from holidays, and treated like an ATM with a pulse. You chose your family, Emily. You chose Beatrice. Now, Beatrice can provide you with a home. I looked at Beatrice. I assume, given your immense wealth and high standards, you have plenty of room in your estate for them? Beatrice sputtered. Well, right now we are renovating the guest wing and... Figured, I said. I looked around the beautiful living room one last time. I took in the decorations I wasn't allowed to help hang, the food I wasn't invited to eat, and the people who didn't want me. Merry Christmas, I said. I turned and walked out the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it gently, firmly. I got into my car and drove away. I didn't go to a party. I drove to a quiet overlook by the water, turned off the engine, and watched the rain streak the windshield. I cried then. I cried for the loss of the dream, for the cruelty of it all. But beneath the tears, there was a foundation of steel I hadn't felt in years. I had reclaimed myself. The next month was a blur of silence and chaos. My phone blew up with texts and calls. I blocked Beatrice immediately. I let Jason's calls go to voicemail. I answered Emily once, 3 days later. Mom, please, we can fix this. Cancel the sale. It's done, Emily. The deed is transferred. I couldn't cancel it if I wanted to. We have nowhere to go. We can't afford a place like this in Bellevue. Then you will have to live somewhere you can afford. Like the rest of the world. They moved out on January 20th. They found a small 2-bedroom apartment in Renton, a working-class suburb about 30 minutes south. It was a far cry from the Colonial in Bellevue. I didn't see them for 6 months. I used that time to heal. I joined a book club. I took a watercolor class. I started volunteering at the literacy center again. I realized that for years I had been waiting for their permission to live. Now, I just lived. In August, I received a letter in the mail. It was a handwritten card from Emily. Mom, I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, But I'm asking for 5 minutes. I'll meet you wherever you want. I miss you. And I have news. I met her at a coffee shop in neutral territory. She looked different. Tired, yes, but also more grounded. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she wasn't wearing the expensive jewelry Beatrice used to insist upon. "Hi, Mom," she said, nervously gripping her cup. "Hello, Emily." I want to apologize," she started, tears welling up. "Not because I want something, just because I was wrong. Horribly, stupidly wrong. We were so entitled. We let Beatrice get in our heads, but that's no excuse. I let you down. I hurt you." "You did," I said simply. "Living in the apartment. It's been hard," she admitted. "But it's also been good." Jason stood up to his mother. He told her that if she ever insulted you again, she wouldn't see us. She hasn't spoken to us in months. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, though I wasn't really. "I'm not," Emily said. "It's quiet. It's ours. And we're going to need the quiet." She reached into her bag and pulled out an ultrasound picture. "I'm 12 weeks along," she whispered. "It's a girl." I looked at the grainy black and white image. A grandchild. A new beginning. The anger that I had been carrying, the cold, hard shield I had forged, began to melt just enough to let the light in. "She's going to need a grandmother," Emily said. "Not a banker, not a landlord, just a grandma, if you're willing." I reached across the table and took my daughter's hand. "I would like that very much. It has been 2 years since that Christmas Eve. Things are not perfect, but they are real. Emily and Jason still live in the apartment in Renton. They are saving up for a house of their own, a modest one that they will pay for themselves. I help with the baby, little Sarah, named after my mother, but I don't pay their bills. I bring lasagna, and we eat it on their small laminate table, and it tastes better than any meal I ever had in the big house. Beatrice is slowly trying to weave her way back in. But the dynamic has shifted. She has no power anymore because they need nothing from her. And as for me, I learned the most valuable lesson of all. We often think that love means giving until we are empty. We think that sacrifice is the currency of affection. But love without boundaries is just self-destruction. I had to risk losing my daughter to truly find her. I had to close the door on a house to open the door to a home. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is say no, because only when you respect your own value will others begin to see it too. And that is a deed worth more than any property on earth.